Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 230. I am Peter, and joining me today is, Connor's not here. Connor's computer broke earlier today, so I guess I'm just talking to myself for 2 hours then.
On your left.
That's what you went with.
Yeah, that's what I went with. We can't play wrestling themes. You can't be like, by God, Kane, that's gotta be Kane.
Oh, it was a big one this week, Matt. I can't believe you're not referencing the huge one that happened a few days ago.
Yeah, because real quick, and not to ramble or anything, but I had it spoiled by somebody in a Facebook Messenger chat that I could not. That was one of those where you just click and then the picture's there. So I had no warning, and I was pretty grumpy. But yeah.
Yeah.
If only I could swing down from the rafters.
So Matt is here. Matt is back. Cue the John Wick gif somewhere. I don't have the ability to put it on the screen right now. And copyright stops me from doing it later. But just let it be known I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I guess copyrights would affect gifs, wouldn't they?
Technically, they would. I don't think it's actually a big. Like, if I put a GIF on the screen, I don't think it would actually be flagged or caught by anything. I think the audio is a lot more detectable, but
algorithmically, and all that stuff. Yeah.
But hey, that's what it is. I will make it clear. It's going to look like Matt has jumped back in because Connor couldn't be here. That is not the case. Matt was going to be here for this episode, regardless.
Yeah, again, there's no hard commitment, but as you know, Connor not being able to be here did edge it more towards, and the fact that this morning was going to be going candle shopping at Bath and Body Works. I was kind of like, hey, I have some comics I can talk about too. For the record, I still don't like beating up people. I don't like beating up people even more now. So yeah.
Well, we're here. It's a DC Comics podcast. Coming up on today's show, we have some big books to talk about. It's not a big book week in terms of numbers, but in terms of what the books are, actually quite meaty. So we have Justice League Endless Winter issue 1. This is the start of the 9-part series, which is taking place over the 5 Wednesdays or Tuesdays, if you're, I suppose, these days, of December. And this is part 1. So it's just the 1 part this week, but I think it's like 2. Yeah, it has to be 2 parts every other week now. Going forward. So that is coming up. We also have Batman 104, DCeased Dead Planet number 6. We have Batman Catwoman issue 1, the Tom King series that finally materialized and appeared before us.
For better or for worse. It feels off.
That's a double meaning right there, because it's also marriage related. So that was a nice touch. We got Strange Adventures issue 7. That is kind of the main 5, although Matt did also brave Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Wonder Woman, War of the Gods issue 1. I did not, because I was so down on the last one, and it was like a 50-page book that I went, you know what? I'm good.
And you feel every page of those 50, let me tell you.
So I made that choice. Far Sector did come out this week. Now, it turns out Matt had basically made the same choice I had in his absence, where the last couple of issues, I'd been really struggling to remember anything that had happened previously. So I made the choice to wait. Now, I presume that Connor might still have read it had he been here this week, but he's not. So there will be no discussion of that. But it's not because it's a bad book. I want to make that clear. The book was really solid when it was consistently coming out, and I could remember what was going on.
It's definitely one of those ones that wasn't because of quality. It's just because the way. Same with Joker, Harley, Criminal Sandy, a book I was really enjoying. It just the shipping schedule on it, by design, Although Far Sector wasn't originally every other month, right?
No, it started monthly. It was after the because I had the big break because of pandemic, and then it was switched to bi-monthly, and at that point it was like, I mean, maybe, who knows, maybe if it hadn't had that like 3-month break because of the pandemic, maybe it would have fared a little bit better, but
right. But yeah, so it's not one of those ones you drop because of quality. I'm definitely excited to get back to it.
Yeah,
when I can. But
I think it'll be a good trade read when you can read all 12 of them in one sitting. So there you go. We do have a little bit of news as well before we get into the books. Because some juicy things. I mean, they're not surprising things, but they're a little bit juicy in that we're starting to actually get teases of the books that we're going to have as ongoings after Future State, after February. So, starting off, we have a couple here. So these are in 2 articles on Newsarama. They're split into 2 batches here. We have a Suicide Squad series, which is going to be coming from the same team who are doing, or at least the same writer who's doing the story in the Future State mini, which is Robbie Thompson, who's going to be doing that with Eduardo Pansica, and notably Peacemaker, the John Cena character who's getting his own TV show of all things, is front and center on that cover. So it feels like this is going to have a little bit of synergy with the movie happenings.
Peacemaker, aka not the comedian from Watchmen, but basically, yeah. So that's interesting for sure, especially in this post Doomsday Clock, Watchmen, Rorschach kind of world. That's an interesting take.
Yeah, it also says a Talon on the cover. Although not necessarily as part of the team, it looks like the Talon might be what they're fighting.
So Josh Williamson posted a art preview from one of the books he's working on, and there was a baned out Talon on this League of Injustice gang or whatever it was. I forget what the subtitle was, but so it was cool that they're kind of bringing the Talons back a little bit, but yeah.
So that's that, and all of this kind of falls into place what we've been saying for a couple months now, which is the teams that are on the Future State 2-issue minis are probably the teams, by and large, that are going to be on these ongoings when they launch in March. And similar idea, I believe, to that. And this is the one I'm most excited for out of all this, is Ram V and Mike Perkins are going to be the team on a new Swamp Thing ongoing. That is delightful news. For a couple of reasons. One, because I want a new Swamp Thing book. It's been a while since we had an ongoing Swamp Thing book. And secondly, because I have been loving the shit out of his Catwoman book. So I'm on the Ram V train.
There you go. Yeah, he seems like this is the thing that he really wanted to do, because from his Justice League Dark, with the way that ended with Swamp Thing, like you could tell there was so much more. So it's real cool that he's getting to do this story just there.
Yeah. And I think Justice League Dark's continuing with him as well. I don't think that's...
Yeah, I just mean with the way that it ended with you guys covered it, but with Man-Bat realizing that there's still something going on within the Swamp Thing, whatever's left of him. So it gave him an exit from Justice League Dark to just do the Swamp Thing stuff he wants to do on the solo title.
So that's cool news. And Mike Perkins, again, I think is a perfect artist for Swamp Thing. He excels when it comes to the shadows and when it comes to the dark sides of the world and all that. So that is super exciting stuff. I'm happy about that. I mean, the Suicide Squad book, I mean, I'm not against it. I'm not for it. I'll see how it is, but I'm not expecting anything.
In this day and age, there has to be a really exciting name attached.
What do you mean, like Tom Taylor?
To Suicide Squad, yeah, to make me care about it. And that's nothing against Robbie Thompson. I just, it's just a brand that I'm not that, fond of. I do wonder
if we'll get the follow up to that Suicide Squad in March. The Revolutionaries, whatever they may end up being called.
I would bet on it, because the stuff that Taylor does, he seems to thrive on the book shifting like that. So maybe it won't be called the Revolutionaries. Maybe it'll be something else. But I definitely think we'll get something.
Yeah, I think one of the things I thought of was that maybe they'll end up in another, kind of like how it was a Suicide Squad book, but it was really their book. I could see them being in, like, I don't know, pick something else, but it's really theirs.
Yeah,
but they're latching on to something else.
I definitely feel like, from the stuff I've been reading since I've been off about the comic industry, and with some of these Future State books that are almost anthologies, I definitely feel like the return of the anthologized book is coming, where you'd get like half of it's a Revolutionaries book and then half of it's something else, and you call it like, all-time war stories or something from DC's past, something along those lines. And that way you get this double-sized book. You're not printing 2 books. You're just printing the one. I don't know how much that factors in, but that's just, it seems to be where comics are going, because I still don't buy the Warner shuttering the whole, physical end of things, right? Keep shouting out. So, with digitally, you could even release those separately digitally. Like, it doesn't even have to, I almost feel like the way that DC was doing digital, where there's so many, and then they release the one big one. I feel that's kind of the wave of the future for them going forward. But yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how, like, if that starts being the main books, then how do you know, like, I mean, we would be covering the digital versions, I suppose, because they come first and they're the talking points.
Well, going through my comic collection back here, I definitely have to cut my physical intake because I'm running out of room. Like, legit, like I was running out of room 2 years ago when I moved. I'm definitely like I went down to my garage and I have to rearrange things to make room. So something's got to give on my end. And if it's digital, then so be it.
I feel like if Matt's existence on this show from day one has been a song, then the chorus of that song is, I need to cut back on physical books.
I do. It's very difficult, though.
I've no room.
There was a while when I wasn't recording every week that some would stack up on others. So some weeks I'd only spend like $10. And my wife would be like, oh, that's great. You are cutting back. And then smash cut to the next week when I pick up the ones I didn't get the week before. to now it was a $40. She goes, wait, I thought you were cutting back. I was like, no, it's law of averages, honey. Like it's still averaging about 20-25.
Yeah, you have to look at the month total.
And not the weekly total. And that hasn't shifted much. But it also doesn't help that, like these tie-ins for metal are $6 physically, so yeah.
It is what it is. So the next series that they announced coming, and I think we're both going to be, I mean, I don't really know the names here to be excited too much, but I am excited that we're finally going to have a Green Lantern book that is not part of Grant Morrison's season 2 nonsense. And
if their future state team can, if that carries over, it's going to be John Stewart focused.
Yeah, because the team that are doing this, Jeffrey Thorne and art by Tom Rainey, they're doing one of these stories, because a lot of the bigger books in Future State are actually anthology books where there's like 3 stories that are ongoing between the 2 or 3 issues. So their story's called The Last Lanterns, and that is about John Stewart. So there's a chance that might mean that we're getting a John Stewart ongoing Green Lantern book, which would be a cool thing to see. Hopefully it's good.
I like John, and I guess your favorite Lanterns, kind of like your kids, you like them all, but there's ones you like a little bit more. And Stewart's always in that middle that I wish I had more definitive stories from. Like, I know there's Mosaic and all that stuff, but recently there's not a lot. He's always just kind of a supporting character, whatever's going on in the deal. So if he's going to get his own book, that's real cool. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I mean, Newsarama are saying there's 5 confirmed titles because they're counting Justice League Dark returning as one, but I mean, that's just continuing. I wouldn't count that. But the next book they've got here is an interesting one. This is Teen Titans Academy, and this is the older, like, original New Teen Titans kind of setting up a school for the younger heroes to train them.
Boy, where's that familiar?
I don't know. It's very X-Men sounding, isn't it?
Well, even that was Johns' take when he relaunched it back in 2003. Was he had the older heroes that were guiding the Young Justice kids and became my definitive Teen Titans. So yeah, but no, it is also very X-Men.
Yeah, and apparently the Future State story this is kind of spinning out of. So again, this is Tim Sheridan writing with Rafa Sandoval in the art. Like, apparently the Future State story does feature like the future of like the downfall of this academy. So we're kind of going to get like this weird ending of it before we then, okay, here's what it is in present day. Here's what
it's almost a Days of Future Past.
So apparently Red X is going to feature, and there's like a preview Teen Titans page with Red X on it. Notably, there's also a character that looks like a cross between Nightwing and Deathstroke, which I saw at least one person, I think it was Talking Superman, call him Dickstroke on Twitter, which stuck with me for obvious reasons.
Yes, of course it did, because you love Dick. Let's not forget. Yeah, I mean, you could have gone with Deathwing or Nightstroke's real bad too. But yeah, Dickstroke's that's a tough sell. Yeah, maybe you don't want to put that on your cover.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that's not his actual name.
No, but just suspend disbelief for a second.
Yeah.
I don't know about this one because the whole Red X and like I get there's a whole generation of people that came up on the Cartoon Network show and love the concept of Red X. I don't know. It seems weird.
Yeah, I really like the concept of this book. Again, it's one of those things where I'm not that familiar with the writer, so I have no idea what to expect in terms of quality. So I'll have to see what the Future States book's like. And even if I don't like that, I'll still probably try issue 1 of this just to see how the actual book is. Because it's kind of like how when we started Rebirth and we had all those Rebirth one-shots. And even the Rucka one for the Wonder Woman series wasn't that good. You know, that book got great with issue 1 onwards, but that Rebirth issue was kind of shaky.
Yeah.
So...
Right.
So even if I don't like some of these Future State 2-shots, I'm still probably going to be like, oh well, I'll still give issue 1 of the actual book a chance because it's not.
Yeah, it's not indicative of the creative team because they're writing with that Future State in mind.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah, it's kind of like judging like a new book that you've not tried yet based on just a tie-in issue. It's not really fair.
Or because Future State does feel like Convergence to me, but not in the way like it's just a stopgap.
Yeah.
Let's hold over time. Where it is, we're going to take a break from what we're doing and focus on one thing. Or even, what was the one back in the New 52? Future's End.
Yeah.
Where for the whole month, they did Future's End. And it feels a little bit more like that. So you can't judge. Like, you couldn't judge what was the real bad Future's End that I read? There was a lot that were bad.
I happily skipped that one. So
Yeah, so I picked up a couple, and there was ones that were really bad of books that I was really enjoying. Maybe like the Green Arrow one.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, this is not so good.
Obviously, this is similar to those two things, and that it's like, you know, in that case, it was a month. In terms of Convergence, it was 2 months. I think this one feels a little bit more relevant to what's going forward because it is actually relaunching things right after. It does feel like it's leading into something. So, hopefully that works out in our favor. But we'll see. We'll see how Future State has. Obviously, we're starting Endless Winter today. The one last bit of news to mention here, it's becoming a bit of a running joke. But given that the movie's finally got a release date that they're sticking to because it's coming to HBO Max, the Wonder Woman 1984 variants are finally hitting in January of 2021. And because the movie is coming out on Christmas Day, this should actually stick this time. So some of these Future State issues... So this is the weird thing. These covers were done for ongoing books, and now they're all for Future State books because it's January. So...
I mean, which I guess for the speculators, that'll drive something. But for someone like me, I'm just like, oh, if it's got a cool cover, I guess. But like, I know there's a Frisian one in there that I'm going to have to track down. So I love Jenny Frisian's art. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy Wonder Woman's coming out. I'm not so much about the variants. Like, it's at this point, they could have done them at any point, right? Like,
yeah.
So... I mean, at least it's not Marvel with the Eternals. And there, what is it, 27 different ones for the first issue?
Oh, I think it was like 30-something.
30-something? Yeah.
I want to say 39. I don't know why, but the number 39 stuck in my head there.
It's a whole lot. And it's just like, and someone pointed out, I forget who was on Twitter, goes, that's more variants than probably this thing's going to run just because of Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, they don't get up to that number anymore.
Yeah. All right. So before we actually get to the books, I just want to actually just run through the checklist for Endless Winter because it is bouncing around a lot of different books. So I just want to every week I'm going to do this before we actually start reading or talking about the first book we're going to do. So, so obviously today we're going to be talking about Justice League Endless Winter issue 1. That one's nice and easy because it's the first one. But just to run through the rest of this checklist, which we've done before, but I think it's worth reiterating this every week whilst we're doing this, so you know what you're getting next week. So next week you're going to have The Flash 767 as part 2, and then part 3 is Superman Endless Winter Special issue 1, so those are both next week. Week after, part 4 is Aquaman 66, and part 5 is Justice League 58. Part 6 is Teen Titans Endless Winter Special issue 1. Part 7 is Justice League Dark 29. Part 8 is Black Adam Endless Winter Special number 1, and Part 9 is Justice League Endless Winter issue 2, which, and obviously that last one's on the 29th. Just a mail correction as well, is that it's not 2 per week. It's actually 2 next week, 3 the following week, 2 the week after that, and then the final week, much like this week, it's just the one Endless Winter Justice League
It's like a capstone or bookends.
Yeah, so... that's what's coming for this story. So we'll get started then. Justice League Endless Winter issue 1, which is obviously the start of this 9-part series. Andy Lanning and Ron Marz writing, with Howard Porter and Marco Santucci on the art in this particular issue. And yeah, so this is the thing, like, we had some vague ideas of like, okay, this ancient Justice League that fought this like Frost King dude, but I'll be honest, I'd forgotten all of this. I went into this almost completely cold today. No pun intended.
Yeah, no, this is one thing I definitely was excited for. Like, this is not that I had to catch up for this, but this was when I picked up my books on Wednesday. This is the first thing I read.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's Viking Justice League though. Like it's right, so on brand. Um, and yeah, and to see the Howard Porter art, I think that's real good because he has a pulpy kind of vibe to his art, and this is a very pulpy book to start with. I mean, we have a team drilling up by the old remnants of the Fortress of Solitude, and so I was getting it was giving me Plunge vibes, which has ended a couple months by now. But yeah, just that kind of pulpy horror monster unleashing from the start, and I loved it.
Joe, I quite like this issue, and it's not that it's the best thing ever, but there's some things that I really liked about it, and one of them is that it felt like a mid-2000s like crossover or event to me, in the sense that it felt like there was a lot of things from current continuity that were being referenced, and it felt like a part of a cohesive world. Such as the Fortress. Okay, so this is like someone from Roxanne, not Roxanne, that's Marvel.
Yeah, but
Stag Industries.
No, it's Stag, but yes. And then so the guy that is doing him, like, who is this guy? And Sapphire says it's my brother, so of course I have to look stuff up. And had I finished the Terrifics, Yang introduced this character as a rival to Sapphire in the family business.
So that's another current day continuity thing that they're using. Yep. That's actually really cool, because you got the Fortress having been moved, so this is them digging in the Arctic at the old Fortress site, where there's just remnants of crystals and stuff lying around. But there's other references in here. There's references to the fact that Aquaman just got married, and he should be planning his honeymoon,
trying to get home to his wife and daughter, which I thought, this is the most blue collar Aquaman's ever been.
References to Clark, of course, revealing his identity to the world. It felt like there was a lot of little things sprinkled throughout that really made it feel like this was a part of the ongoing world. And don't get me wrong, I think if this was something that was going to be spread out over 9 months, one issue at a time, it would probably, oh my god, this would not have the steam to last that. As a 1 month thing, just based on this first issue, as a 1 month thing, I think I'm going to have fun with this.
Yeah, definitely. And I felt the same way. Sometimes I can sound like a broken record because I do love the interconnectedness of the DC universe. It's like why I read comics. And so just the fact that we got this from the start was really cool. Just seeing the Justice League interact in that way. And also, this is the first time I think I read a Lanning book at DC, because Abnett's been here for a while now. And so I don't think I read too much of the DNA stuff, a couple over at Marvel, but they both seem to have a real good take on, like, not introducing characters, but weaving them in and out to where they each get a moment, almost like on a TV show when there's a crossover episode.
I actually really, because sometimes I think the worst part of a comic book can be the build to the villain, because it can feel kind of whatever. I actually love the stuff in the Arctic building up to, like, what, just the excavation, they're digging for something. Because I mean, you were thinking Plunge. Amusingly, I was thinking something that inspired that. I was thinking of The Thing. I was thinking of that sort of stuff. And that was making me excited, because I was like, okay, what are they going to unearth? What are they going to do? So the opening part of the book, though, is just this, Justice League tracking down a bunch of B-tier villains who are hiding off in a tropical country.
Which I loved, although one of them does not deserve to be there, and I am gonna have to write a sternly worded letter.
Is this Catman?
To DC? Yes. Come on, Catman's above B level. He's like A- level, and he's not really a villain. I mean, give him a street cred. But as soon as I saw Icicle, I knew I could prickle Pete by making him think it was another cold themed villain.
Not quite Cold Snap, but I do appreciate Icicle, and the fact that we have a new one by the end of this called Frost King. It's like, okay, the ranks.
Yeah,
if Frost King at some point doesn't assemble the Icicle Avengers at some point,
like, he's definitely, like, Mr. Freeze is going to definitely know what's going on with Frost King, right? Like, that's just a natural progression.
I love the idea of Mr. Freeze, just because obviously the book ends with, like, snow falling upon the entire planet at the same time, which is weird from a weather point of view.
And definitely.
Yeah, and he walks out. I love the idea of Mr. Freeze just walking out of his, like, apartment or his Arkham cell and just going, Vita has come to Gotham, and then just walking back.
Also, him just looking up and going, yes, and he could take his helmet off because it's that cold. But yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that in between the leading up, because I gotta say it's paced really, really well. in that we get the Justice League stuff and then the Stag stuff balanced.
Yeah.
But in between that, we have this interpersonal things with the Justice League. So it's like Barry asking each of them how they balance work and their home life, like, which is just it seemed more Wally West to me than Barry Allen, but I'll take it.
I kind of love the payoff though, where he goes to ask Batman last, and then just doesn't bother finishing the question because it's Batman.
Yeah. No. Also, him pointing out that of course Batman's got a really cool winter suit.
Yes.
On standby. I thought that was real funny.
It makes sense.
But yeah, just them working all of that in, and just so you do get the feeling that they know each other.
I thought the pacing was really good as well. I think the book's the right length. It's longer than a regular issue, but it's not like 50 pages. It's like, something in the 30 something page range. At least in the digital
36.
version. Yeah.
Yeah, if I had to guess.
But it feels like, okay, it's big enough that it feels a bit more like at the start of an event. And I'm not sure if the rest of the issues are this long, or if it's just the bookends that are going to be this long.
Right.
Like I could see maybe like Flash, whatever the number is next week, being regular length, but then the ones that are called special number ones being a bit longer. I mean, we'll see.
Right.
But yeah, it felt just the right length to me to make it feel a bit bigger, a bit more special, but not so big that I was sitting going, "Oh, this is a 60-page slog" or something like that.
And also, I was giving sole credit to Lanning, and then I remembered Ron Marz, who's also, late 90s, early 2000s. That was his heyday, writing Green Lantern. Kyle's his character.
Oh, for sure. Do you know what it is? It does feel like an old school comic in a lot of ways, in a way that's kind of refreshing to me, because so many books don't feel like this anymore. And I think if we constantly were getting this, I'd get tired of this too. But variety is the spice of life. We need a mix of both new and old styles.
And when we get to some of the other books, as much as I like the Black Label, sometimes it's nice to have a cheeseburger when you're getting fancy meals all the time. Can just be this fun thing. And so, I also had to credit Ron Marz there, because I'm sure that had a lot to do, because that dude's just seeing him on Twitter, he loves the DC universe. So, I'm sure he was adding things in there as well.
I think having it all take place in December, like having the whole thing come out in December, it's good because of the whole 1 month like condensed. It feels like a cool thing in a snapshot of time. But because it's December, the fact that they've got the story set at Christmas and there's Christmas trees and it's snow themed, it really feels like a nice like festive treat.
It does.
Just to I'll read this over the next month.
We'll be having the conversation as Endless Winter, a Christmas comic, like we do with Die Hard.
It totally is. It's already a Christmas comic. I will not.
Yes.
Accept otherwise.
But and then when we get to the Frost King and him coming out, and just he's got these like Norse mythological ice creatures, that are attacking the Justice League, and they realize they're not sentient. So, field day, wrecking them out and stuff. I thought that was real cool.
Yeah, they get to go wild on them, because Flash was with Black Lightning and his daughters helping with the tree.
That's right.
And he gets called away. He's like, "Hey, we got a situation in the Arctic," and it's after they fight whatever. And it may actually be after Frost King leaves, where Superman realizes, oh wait, this is where my fortress was. Like, this is suspicious. And the Frost King sees, he sees this Viking. He sees Hippolyta, he sees Black Adam, he sees the other one whose name I've not remembered yet, Viking Prince or something like that.
Yeah, Viking Prince.
There you go.
Think Prince Valiant, but he's a Viking.
Sure.
He's this old DC pulpy character. Needs a better name than Viking Prince, but we'll work on it. Can't call him Thor, but yeah. Anyways.
So basically, Superman feels responsible that maybe his Kryptonian tech being above his resting place has actually, because he mentions that he read Kryptonian like energy signatures coming off of him. So maybe the kryptonite or the Kryptonian crystals,
the sunstones, whatever it is,
they've made him stronger potentially. But we get this montage of just winter coming to, everywhere. We see Gotham, Manhattan, Metropolis, Kandak even, Yep. In fact...
Yeah, Black Adam looks pissed. And not just because this old villain came back up, but he seems like me. He doesn't like the cold.
Yeah, so... but he does clearly recognize this. He's like, after all this time, it's happening again. So it feels like Black Adam might be that's why he's got a special, presumably, later on in the story.
Right. Well, we see him at the end with this Viking Justice League, because we get to the end and you see Hippolyta coming to the wizard
Yeah.
And he goes, well, and it's during the Viking Age, so we're in the 900s, and he's, the wizard gives him this speech about how he had to lock away his champion, and you're playing with fire if we release him. She's like, well, it's really important. We're going to need him. And then so we get this tease, and she says Shazam and unleashes the power of Black Adam, who's got a real cool, King Tut headdress to go with this version of Teth Adam.
Yeah, this is the William the Bloody version of Black Adam.
I'm not sure I get that reference.
It's the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That was Spike's name back in the day.
Spike William the Bloody.
So it's kind of like how Angel is to Angelus. So the idea this is the Angelus version of Black. But he's worse. He's nastiness. Yeah. Whereas now he's a bit more of an anti-hero. So
right. Yeah, I need to start rewatching Buffy. They've been doing that at my comic shop. So when I've gone in to get my stuff, it's just on. And I was like, I should give this a rewatch while I have some time. But yeah, and I would have picked up on that one. But yeah, so really big threat. It seems like it took, Ancient Swamp Thing, whoever he is, which I'm excited because I love seeing the different versions. Ever since Snyder's version, where we saw the dinosaur Swamp Thing, I was like, oh, who's the different ones at this point? And then, of course, you have Hippolyta and Viking Prince, Black Adam. I'm sure they'll add to it because they like to have you like to have the, not cognates, but like who represents who. So, like Superman's like Black Adam, Batman's like Viking Prince, Swamp Thing's himself, of course. Hippolyta's Wonder Woman. So you're going to wonder.
Speedster, Green Lantern.
Yeah, do we get a type of speedster? Because, Jason Aaron over in Marvel did this kind of thing where he had the prehistoric Avengers, but he also in one story had the Viking Avengers, which was really cool. Yeah. So
it's really impressive you managed to rip off a DC story before the DC story happened.
It is really impressive. Or it's almost like he gets out ahead of things.
No, I had fun with this. I think it felt like a nice big kind of. I mean, it's weird to say summer event, but it is in the context of like how the fun actiony kind of vibe it feels. But notably, it's a Christmas event, and it's all set at Christmas. I like the build to this stuff. The art is good. I will say, I like Porter's stuff, but sometimes his faces are a bit wonky. Like, I think that's just how it looks. But it is very cartoony. It's very comic booky in a lot of ways, and I hate saying that because it's such a like.
No, but there's a way where it's like you wouldn't describe Strange Adventures with that 1-2 punch of artists as comic booky. So no, there is like, it sucks, and you're talking to a guy that describes things as pulp, and most people look at pulp as something that doesn't have much value, right? So so no, I get it, but at the same time, I know exactly what you mean, and that's why I like Howard Porter's art, and it's also because I came up with him, doing Flash. It feels comforting, like a blanket.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I had fun with this. What are you giving it, Matt?
All right, so I wonder if I've recalibrated it all. Probably not, but I'm going to give this an 8.5. Really solid out the gate first entry.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll go with the 0.5. I'll say a solid 8, but I will say I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this, and hopefully if it keeps the momentum that I feel this first issue has, the pacing's quite good, then I think we're in for a fun romp. And
yes,
I mean that in every sense of the word. Like, I don't think it's going to be any more important than a romp, but that's okay. I'm up for a Christmas romp.
And I wouldn't say I'm getting burned out on death metal, but death metal does not feel like a romp anymore.
Oh, because it's this super duper crisis levels. It's
sprawling, like epic piece within a piece type thing that's going on, and so to have this switch this up, I'm okay with it.
That said, I am glad you're back for the last couple of main issues of death metal, though, just so for the resolution and where it's going and blah blah.
I mean, and getting to a redemption of Superboy Prime, like this is,
yes.
What? I hate him, and I don't hate him here.
Oh yeah, were you not here for that issue where he kind of made a face turn? Oh wow! Oh yeah!
Oh yeah! Oh no, that basically for me, for the wrestling fans out there, this would be like if suddenly I liked Shawn Michaels. I do not like Shawn Michaels. I am a Bret Hart guy through and through. And I appreciate Shawn Michaels for what he's done, and that there's other wrestlers that idolize him and have come to do good things in the business. I don't like him as a character, and that's how I was with Superboy Prime. So suddenly for them to have him turn, and then it all makes sense that, of course, you're going to have Superboy Prime turn when the Batman who laughs, who's become a god, he is the Bat God. You're going to have the real Superman.
And honestly, it was kind of a touching, like the way Wonder Woman convinced them to do the right thing was actually quite touching and kind of stood up for the idea of Superman in a weird way.
And kind of, as much as I love Johns, and I know that Johns that's been his character, and he's used him as a foil for many characters. This is much more, to me, in line with Infinite Crisis version of Superboy Prime, who ultimately wanted to do the right thing. He just got corrupted from seeing that world do the wrong thing all the time, right?
That was good.
Yeah, so this seems like a logical conclusion to his story arc. So I am thinking that.
I look forward to discussing the next one then. Once we get back to those plot threads.
Yeah.
Batman 104, James Tynion the Fourth, and I've just written down too many artists because I was not writing down all four of them.
Right off the gate, I did not like this issue, and it's mainly because of the art pacing and just the pacing.
Here's the annoying thing: is I actually really like a lot of this issue story wise. And I have been very critical of the Ghostface stuff because I'm not a fan of like inserting a character into someone's backstory. I hate it. I'm
so tired of this trope when it comes to Batman.
Yep, it happens too often.
It happens way too often, and I like for what he represents. Right? There's pieces of Ghostmaker I do like, but I feel like with Tynion on Batman over this run, it's been a lot of the same. Of I like what he's doing, I don't like the execution.
Well, I mean, I really Joker work. I think with this issue, where it works for me is where it takes it away from Batman and it makes it about Babs and Dick, and it's them talking about Ghostmaker. I said Ghostface because that's the Scream villain. But it's turning out that Dick knows something about this guy and tells Barbara the story. I like that way more than anything else we've had about him because it was from the perspective of someone who was kind of like also going like, wait, who's this guy that Batman's got in his past? Like, at least this gave me like a conduit to work from. And plus, it's hard for me not to love. Let me find the exact panel here.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I knew.
Yes, so basically Dick said, I'm on my way to Gotham since this is all going down. Do you have any operatives in the field? And she mentions Cass and Steph are like in the city. And later on, Steph calls in and says, and I quote, Batgirl's calling in to Batgirl Prime. Mm-hmm. Yes!
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also quip, she goes, we talked about this. I don't know if we should all be that. And she responds like, well, there's like 4 Robins and they have 0 problems. There can be multiple Batgirls.
Do you remember this conversation when Connor was trying to argue that we couldn't have multiple Batgirls?
Yeah. So
it's like Tynion.
Tynion's aware.
He knows. He knows. So
it's to me that's the thing that makes it DC. Like, sure, you can't have 4 Batmans running around, right? Because part of that character relies on the prestige of that title. But when it comes to the sidekicks, I mean, I don't mind having mini Flashes. Like, in the perfect world, I can have Wally and Barry both operating as a Flash and Jay Garrick.
Sure. So this is the thing. Like, I started this book and it starts off with the Batman, Harley, and Clown Hunter tied down, but when it cut to Barbara, the art change is so drastic that I went, are you kidding me? What the hell is this difference? And the funny thing is that as that went on, I ended up enjoying that middle part of the book where it was Barbara talking to Dick. And then when he tells the story of the flashback again, it's a different artist, so it's jarring again. So the actual story beats, and this is the thing that I've said consistently throughout this arc, is that all the stuff in the background with Barbara being Oracle again, and all the stuff around Gotham City, setting up the Gotham that we're going to be in for the next several arcs, all that stuff I like. The actual plot with Ghostmaker,
Mr. Swords, as Harley called him, which I did. I liked, and I will say, as critical as I've been of Harley in the past, I think Tynion is one of those writers that gets her voice pretty well.
I've been relatively enjoying it. I laughed out loud actually this issue when she's trying to talk Clown, because Clown Hunter's been left untied, so he can go up and grab a sword and he's going to kill Harley. Right. And Harley's trying to talk him out of it, and Batman just says, Harley, you were the other night he killed his parents. And she's like, shit. That made me laugh.
It is, and I just finished the Harley Quinn TV show last week. I finally got that one done, and it's So I've had a lot of that kind of Harley, which I do like, because it's not the overt, the Palmiotti Connor winking at the camera constantly, but it is that pacing of Harley. You were there when Joker killed his parents. Oh shit, So yeah, it's comedic timing, and not everybody has it, right? That's why they always say comedy's harder than drama a lot, and I feel like Tynion has it when it comes to Harley, which goes a long way. The Clown Hunter character, why is his font different? Like, how are we supposed to read that?
Yeah, also, I would also add, going back to the art here is a problem, is that the last page, he looks like he's a 40-year-old man all of a sudden, when he's...
And then some he looks like a 12-year-old, some he looks like a 42-year-old, and it's too inconsistent.
Yeah, and this is the thing, it's not on Tynion. I can't really blame Tynion for it. It's not even necessarily any one of the artists' fault, although we'll sit and complain about Gilla March's art till the cows come home. But it's more just editorial or whoever who are making these choices to like, oh well, we'll have just 4 artists on this issue and that'll do. It was very distracting, and I'm not someone like, if there's just 2 artists on a book, as long as they try and make it feel consistent, right. I can look past it a way more than Connor can. Connor sat and complained about the art changes in the last issue, which were nowhere near as extreme as this. This is
no, the last one was pretty good, but this is the same issues I had during like Batman and Robin Eternal, where that one was weak, or Batman Eternal, that was weekly. So I get the changing in artists, but sometimes the quality of the art was just like they're just pumping it out because it was a weekly book. And I feel like here, that's what I feel like, they're so married to the idea of this being every other week still, that the art's taking a hit.
It's weird though, because you think at the very least, because it's Batman, because it's DC's biggest selling book, typically month to month, that they'd always have good artists on it. They would never just put anyone on it. But yeah, we've been stuck with Gilla March for however long. Right. I guess some people actually do like his works, I guess.
Yeah, part of me thinks too that while we might not like the look of the art, like I'll use JR, since even across Twitter, I've seen other people that don't complain about comics complaining about his art on Action. So yeah. So I think though that the writers like working with him creatively. So I think that goes a long way too. So maybe March is like that for Tynion. Tynion just likes working with them, and so we get stuck with the art that we don't enjoy, but creatively, whatever works, right? And that's how I feel with Bendis. I feel like Bendis likes working with JR, and that's why, because they have to be aware of it now that people aren't digging his art. You
would think they'd have noticed something by now. Yeah, because the story Dick tells Babs is about how him, when he was Robin and Batman, they were hunting down some C-lister, whoever it was, doesn't really matter, and they came across Ghost Hunter or Ghostmaker. There's too many new names. Ghostmaker. And basically Batman tells them the story of like, okay, well, when I was training around the world, I met this guy who kind of became my first real friend, because we both wanted to be the best crime fighters, we both wanted to learn all these martial arts. But then when he found out I was doing it out of this, what happened to my parents, he saw it as like a weakness, as revenge, when it's, he's doing it for the art of crime fighting.
The art of crime fighting.
But who else has had to do that?
Yeah, and I was worried about it, and so apparently being off for months at a time has no bearing on it working. But yeah, maybe I'll ask Santa for a new mic. We'll see what's going on. Maybe that's something in the cards.
Yeah, I still think it could just equally be the computer rather than the mic. So you'll get a new mic and you'll sound better, but
yeah, right. But
it'll still do the thing.
So, what are we going on about there? When it went off, I can't remember.
Oh, Dick talking to Batman about Ghost Hunter, Ghostmaker.
About him. I do like that conversation of the art of crime fighting, right? Like how silly that sounds, but that's kind of been Batman's thing. Like his rules is almost an art among it too. So it shows you how far Bruce has come. That there really is an art to it, because of the whole point of the struggle with Clown Hunter at the end is him killing people, and Batman's fully belief that that's not how we operate, and the Gotham's almost a better place now than it was. But I also like seeing Ghostmaker getting stuff done. Like he has these mobsters turning themselves in, and You know,
Yeah, that's one of the things that Babs is telling the Batgirls and Dick is that like yeah, like 14 like heads of crime families have turned themselves in. Professor Pig's just shown back up at Arkham instead of being on the wild like he has been. The other thing that happens is that they know where Batman is because the plant that Harley had from Ivy has written the word Arkham on the wall,
right?
so they know
So
where
I'm
to
not gonna
go.
be mad at. You know, it's a Harley thing or a Harley thing, an Ivy thing, and I know from that special, I forget which one it was that had the Poison Ivy
Mm-hmm.
stuff in it. That we're gonna get her story continuing now. So or now, almost now in January, I think. So
Yeah.
um,
So just to
any
just
more of the
to actually confirm who was on this book, right? Just to
yeah.
so we can say who it is. We have Ryan Benjamin and Danny Miki and Bengali and Gilliam March, all listed as artists. It doesn't mention any inkers, so some of them might actually just be inkers, or some of them are self-inking. I don't know, but regardless, there's 4 names there listed as artists. That's a lot.
Mhm.
It's a lot. So,
A whole lot.
uh, is what it is. What are you giving Batman 104?
This is a 6. As much as the fun stuff that was in there,
Yeah,
but it definitely made me question like, do I just want to keep reading Batman digitally? But I know I'm gonna have to get to the end of this arc just for my collection
sure,
section,
sure. It
and I
was,
might just go digitally because I was gonna keep going until Tynion was done, and then
yeah.
just go digitally Batman. This might force my hand though.
The funny thing is that everything he's doing with Babs, with Dick, with the
Mhm.
Batgirls, all the stuff he's doing with Gotham as a setting, I love. So I'm still
Mhm.
really kind of excited about like the future stories, what arcs are past this. But yeah, I'm not loving Ghostmaker, and the art in this is jarring beyond. And some of the art's just not that good, but
Yeah.
even aside from that, it's just jarringly shifting around from wildly different styles.
Hmm.
So I think I think I'll agree with the 6 because there is the
Hmm.
stuff I do like, which is
Yeah.
Batgirl's calling Batgirl Prime. Yeah,
Yeah.
why did I not think of Batgirl Prime? That is
Yeah.
such a good idea. Anyway, there you
Yeah.
go. That's Batman 104. DCeased Dead Planet issue 6. Tom Taylor writing with Trevor Hairsine on the art, as all the issues have been. Nice and consistent there
Hmm.
on that front. This issue has them finally kind of have a cure. Like the
They've
so
unlocked it.
yeah, the greatest minds. We have Fate and Swamp Thing and Poison Ivy, and it sort of lists why they're all eligible for this. And although
Yeah.
I have to ask, were you upset at the end of this page when because it explains okay, Doctor Fate, Ivy because she was a botanist and whatnot, Harley because she's a psychiatrist,
Right.
Chimp because he's a greatest problem solver, and then it gets to the bottom it says and Batman because he's Batman. I
Yeah, I don't like that, and I feel,
loved it.
but I feel like with Taylor, that's very tongue in cheek.
Sure.
It was like Damien because he wouldn't let himself not be there. That's how I read it.
Mm.
But I did like seeing Wallace there, like
Sure, yeah.
him being there as the Flash representative is really really cool, and I do like that the story has gone from a straight up zombie book, right, where they have to leave Earth and go settle a new thing, to then we had Unkillables, which was a zombie movie they have to survive,
Loved
you know,
Unkillables. Loved it.
and now this has become a almost dystopian future where it's like, hey, we have a cure, but now we have to deal with, you know, what is kind of what does society become
I
now?
I kind of love the concept of this where I can't think of any other story that's been zombie like or zombie esque where just as the heroes find a cure and can bring everyone back, there's a group of villains who are about to wipe out everyone on the face of the earth to save themselves, which up until a certain point would have been the right thing to do, and we would have been like,
Right,
yeah, sure, yeah, good idea, make an army of Amazo robots and kill
right,
everything. But now it's like, no, this is actually like them destroying people who could be brought back to life, and
right.
our team of heroes has to sort of race against the clock to do it. So it's this they've taken the cure part of this, which usually is like almost like the it's almost like the unthinkable like good thing that never happens in a zombie movie. They never get that
Mhm.
happy moment.
No. I mean, it's and when you do, it's an I am legend, and there has to
Yeah,
be a sacrifice, you
but
know, and so.
But here,
Yeah.
Taylor's found a way to like give us that, but give us this threat to it, which in
Yeah.
the form of something else.
Well, and on top of that, we get Taylor with the Barda and Mr. Miracle
Mm-hmm.
relationship that was so well developed in King and Gerads Mr. Miracle.
Which again, this is clearly referencing. This is clearly
Right.
taking that as part of its history. Yeah.
Them right, and them bringing up Jacob, their son, and you're just like, oh man, like that's super cool. And just that whole scene where they say that they have to test the cure on somebody, and Dinah wants it to be Ollie, and they're like, well, no, because we have to give it to somebody that we know it's going to work on. You know, his body might not be able.
Yeah, the idea being that Ollie just being human is that if there's something goes wrong,
Right.
his body may just not take it at all. Whereas Barda,
Right.
because she's like superhuman, and
a new god, right?
Yeah.
And so I really like that. So again, it shows that Taylor thinks these things out, right? He's not just, you know, because that's what I'd always thought with Ollie was like, oh, okay, he's going to be the one that we have to keep alive because there's a cure, and we're going to have to turn him back. But just that little wrinkle I liked. The scene where they go to find Barda, and she's been chained to this planet, and she's out roaming around, and it's terrifying. It's up there with the Wonder Woman stuff from Unkillables.
Yeah, and
you know,
when she does sort of realize who she is, and she kisses Mr. Miracle, and it's this sweet moment. They talk about in the next few pages about how like the body clocks of everyone who turned has just kind of paused whilst they've been, and it made me actually think bizarrely of Infinity War and Endgame. It's almost as if instead of just not existing for 5 years, they were zombies for 5 years instead.
Yeah, yeah, they were paused because it is an anti-life, so they're not living, they're not dead. They are in a stasis, like a purgatory.
Yeah,
you know.
And then the other chunk of the book is very much devoted to whatever wild plan Constantine's got, and he's not telling Zatanna. Phantom Stranger's there, Swamp Thing, Etrigan.
This has been the book of Tom Taylor going, who can I have Constantine stab next? Like, and I love it. Like, you know, and then him telling the Phantom Stranger, hey, maybe did one time drunkenly, and Phantom Stranger's like, absolutely not, never with you. All right, just him prodding at him, I thought was really great.
Yeah, I mean, I like the moment where, because he wants Fate's helmet, and Fate's saying, yeah, you can never be removed with your magic, Constantine. Right. He's like, oh, I know. And then he like holds up the wizard's staff, and he's like, Shazam! And that's how he takes it. I like that moment, and, you know, he's got the helmet, he's got the Ragman cloak, he's got the wizard's staff, he's got all of these magical artifacts.
And he's got Boston Brand, right?
Yes.
Boston Brand's in that cloak, which I'm sure will come back, because they mentioned Boston, him imprisoning Boston in there. And on top of it, too, not only do we have the dead overrunning the Earth, we have the Amazo army wiping out the zombies. We have Trigon cleansing the Earth.
Yeah, Trigon. That was teased a couple issues ago. He is now in Paris, and he's already wiped out all of Paris.
Which I thought was a fun thing that he came up through the crypts in Paris. I thought that was real cool. And that... he's cleansing it like by fire. And I still love, that was one of the other wrinkles that I love, the fact that Trigon's upset that there's no souls coming to hell because of the anti-life, so he's going to come and fix that. I love that. And so in my head, we're going to get a Constantine versus Trigon, King Kong Godzilla.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was thinking. It seems most likely that that's specifically what Constantine's going to solve, and that the rest of the Justice League will be dealing with the Amazo robots. And Constantine's doing everything he's doing to take on Trigon, because
just keep him at bay while they can focus on that. Yeah.
Because now we have like all these problems going on at the same time, and I think I'm enjoying this sequel a lot. It's not as good as Unkillables is like.
No,
I loved Unkillables so much, but I am so consistently impressed with how Taylor finds new avenues and new little corners of the DC universe to explore and use in ways that seem inventive and apply to what's going on.
Yeah, no, definitely. If I was getting into comics now, he would be my Jeff Johns, because I feel like there's a lot of similarities with how they find these little niches, and then I don't want to say milk it, because milk it seems like he's doing it, but like he gets it for everything it's worth. I mean, just the idea of Trigon coming up because of the anti-life equation, like that's never been a thing in zombie movies, right? You never get that supernatural aspect of it. So I think that was really cool, and just even the compassion of the heroes here, them not wanting to kill people, you know, because there might be a cure, and it turns out they were right. Like that's another wrinkle that I think is really good. But Tom Taylor's just nailing it.
Yeah, which just makes them guilty about everyone they killed. Like, because when they thought there was no hope, but earlier on, back in the first book, back in Inkillables, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, we could have brought all of them back.
Flash, Superman, Batman, like all of the greatest heroes, have succumbed to this thing, and you can't take that back now. So, although Superman's in the sun, so let's not forget that.
Yeah, maybe they'll find a way to somehow bring him back.
So, but yeah, no, it's really good. This book, I mean, it's doing all the stuff that I love too, playing with all of these. It's got the legacy characters in there. It's got the old school magic users in there. There is a sense of continuity, and it's not mainstream DC continuity, but it's DC continuity nonetheless. I mean, it's just the whole idea of him going to Rama Tut in Nanda Parbat in was that 2 issues ago?
That was last issue.
That was last issue?
Yeah.
And just Constantine knowing that he can't go in there, or Constantine having a hidden room in the Tower of Fate. Like just all that type of stuff. I love that he's playing with that.
Yep. It's doing wonderful things, and I'm consistently impressed. If anything, it says a lot that I'm not praising it even more than I am, and I don't know if that's just because he's already set the bar so unbelievably high, or whatever. But it's really good stuff. What are you giving this issue, Matt?
I'm giving this a 9.5, and the only reason, not only because the art, I'm still not 100% sold on Trevor Hairsine's art, but it fits the tone of the book enough that it's not so bothersome, and you get that great circular image of all the heroes at their heads, like you were talking about, and it ends with Damien. No matter which way you read that one, it works. So it's not one of those ones where it gets lost in things, but yeah, 9.5.
Yeah, I'm actually just going to go with a straight 8 on this, and I think it's just because I kind of agree. I'm not a big Hairsine art guy. It's not the worst, but I'm not in love with it. And I'm not as into the magic side of DC, even though I do like both this and the last issue had a really cool moment where I loved how they used it in some way. I'm still not as inherently interested as a corner, so
gotcha.
I'll go with a straight 8 on that. But there you go. Batman Catwoman issue 1, Tom King with Clay Mann, and this has been a long time coming, and this is bringing Phantasm.
So much of a long time that the cover they used was signed by Clay Mann in 2019.
You're right. I can see that in the bottom.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's officially Black Label, because I have this kind of magnified all my problems I had with Tom King's Batman, is that they had seeming like there's just separate things going on layered over each other, and I'm sure it'll pull together, but this first issue was a chore to read for me, and not like it took forever, but trying to piece things together.
Actually, just a little side note here. I want to know a general opinion. Not that it's super relevant to this, but how did you feel about the first 2 issues of Rorschach? Did you like those?
Oh no, I liked them a lot. The first issue felt very much like a Brubaker Phillips book, with the way that it goes about. The second one, not as much, but that's just because it became it was a detective story, just not with that grittiness.
Yeah, I love both those issues. I'm really into that book.
They're real good, and the art is perfect for it, because
absolutely.
I'm drawing a blank on Fornes is meant for that style of book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, wonderful.
And here, I appreciate what he's doing, and it's almost a what if, and it's Tom King's Batman universe. There's just for this first issue, there's a lot of balls in the air, and trying to piece together everything is a bit much.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, obviously the way he bounces around narrative arcs and his books is quite common for him, especially in Strange Adventures. We're going to be talking about that next, so like that's also a thing. But here you have old woman Selina after the death of Bruce Wayne visiting someone, and obviously it's meant to be a mystery. Who is this old guy? Like, who is this she's talking to? And as the book's going on, and it's bouncing around Batman and Catwoman in their prime, and looking for the son of Phantasm of Well, I forget her real name. This is the thing. It's been so long since I've watched that movie that when they started like,
it's Andrea. I know that one.
yeah, but what's the son's what's the last name is I guess what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Because he's Andrew Beaumont.
Yeah. Yes.
I always wanted to say Romano, but that's the voice director that worked on DC animated for decades. You know, so she's the one that gave us our Batman voice with what's his name? John Blake's Conroy. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, Beaumont.
Yeah, so we were interested in her now that she came to Bruce for help after being in hiding, seemingly, and it sounds like the events of Mask of Phantasm happened. This is,
right.
You know, it's referencing roughly kind of like the ending of that and the explosion, and that she's been in hiding with her son. And were you kind of waiting for like this is Bruce's son reveal at some point?
I was, but it didn't line up, just because. I don't know. It would have been a bridge too far for King. Maybe that's what he intended, and it was a red herring. But I'm definitely not taking that.
I mean, I hope it's not, but I feel like it's going to be weird if they don't like pose the question at some point. If Bruce doesn't think, you know,
right?
I mean, I don't know if it's been because he's 14 years old, so I don't know if it's been 14 years since that happened.
And then, that's what threw me up. But did you ever read Daredevil: The End storyline out of it, or not? End of Days.
End of Days. I have not, no, but I conceptually I see why you're bringing it up though with this.
Just no, this is kind of the same, but in that one, it's revealed that Matt Murdock has like 6 kids, each by different. I just think the same with Bruce collects kids apparently.
Yeah.
Like, you know, not this one though, because tragedy befalls.
Well, Matt Murdock spreads his seed around and takes no responsibility for any of his children. Bruce, with the exception of Damien, actually takes in kids that aren't his seed. So he's actually being quite a noble foster parent, I suppose, in a lot of ways. And this also is dealing with the relationship between Catwoman and the Joker, and Joker kind of like talking to Catwoman about her relationship with Batman and how it's changed her and how she's really one of them, you know, one of the villains, one of the animals.
The
rogues. And they've got him in this sort of hat, you know, this old sort of like gangster look to him.
Which I think is a really nice look. I think Clayman gets beat up a lot for some of his poses and stuff, but when he shows up, he really shows up. And I feel like the Joker, Catwoman stuff and that section, especially, there's a real noirness to it that's not gritty, and it does feel like the animated series. Yeah,
there's his art skill is absolutely off the charts. He's a phenomenal artist. Just occasionally goes a bit too. And funny, obviously, there's a page here where Selena's like coming into bed with Bruce, and it's very sexual. And it's one of those things where this is clearly supposed to be like a sexual moment, and Selena is a very sexual character traditionally, for better or worse. So it doesn't stick out to me in the same way that, you know, because we went on for like 10 minutes on that one page in Heroes in Crisis where Lois for some reason was standing around in her underwear, and it just it was, you know, it was very gratuitous. But they find the dead body of this son, the Beaumont kid, and
Andrew.
He's got Joker eyes face, and it's the idea of like, part of the reason why Andrea was hiding is because she was scared of the Joker, you know, for the last 5 years. I guess maybe that proves that it's not Bruce's son, because I think that's the implication there is that the Mask of Phantasm happened 5 years ago.
Right, which would mean that he was 9 as it was going on.
So, although I don't remember, did Bruce know like Andrea like before the events of that? Were they like long time?
Oh yeah. So they grew up in the same circles. We just watched it because when it it showed up on so not just watched it back in the spring when HBO Max launched. It was on there, and so I hadn't seen it since the theater as a kid. So that was as he had came back to Gotham, they had recalibrated because they kind of grew up together because both of their dads were titans of industry, and then so
I suppose
as he's starting as
in that sense, I suppose it still could be the kid. It's just that it happened long before the events of Mask of Phantasm.
Right.
But the reveal that comes after that, though, and I can't really say present day, in the future, right, with old Selena, is that the old man like says, "I finally get to kill you," and he takes off his glasses and then the wig, and you kind of know where this is going. You're like, okay, there's only one person that this makes sense. It could be, and it's old man Joker. After all this time, the idea that Joker's outlived Batman is kind of a cruel thing.
Well, and it seems like that. So it seems like he's in hiding because he's retired, right? And it's almost like he didn't get to take out Batman. So it's one of those things too. That's how I was reading it. Like, I've outlived him, and I had always thought we would go out together. a Holmes and Moriarty type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the end of the book is Andrea, like you don't know for sure it's her at first, where someone's opening the grave and getting the Phantasm outfit, but then the final page, she's wearing the same clothes, the Phantasm outfit's next to her on the bed, and there's the song that was there at the start of the issue is playing as the snow falls in Gotham. I'm liking the mood a lot. I'll definitely say that. They're really playing with I mean, obviously this whole thing can't be set at Christmas. I mean, maybe it can be, but
yeah. Well, and we know that this follows up the story that he told. I forget.
It was in the annual. Yeah, it was it was the annual where Selena like had him, because she references it in this where she talks about how they were all around him as he died.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting. We're getting like a post Bruce Wayne story with Selena and the Joker, and then the present day story involves Phantasm, who you have to imagine is just about to go absolute nut job and be like full Phantasm to go after Joker. Like it feels like that's where it's naturally going to go in some capacity.
And so here's the thing. You said that Joker tells Selena, I finally get to kill you?
Yes.
I heard that as Selena telling that to him. And then that's why he starts laughing.
Oh, no, you're right. I'll be honest.
But
no, when
the arrow's at, it could literally be either or.
It could be, but now you're saying that to me. Based on the dialogue on the previous page, I actually do think it is Selena. Okay. I said that because when I was glancing through the pages talking about it, I saw it, and it looked like it was coming from him because of the way the panel is. But based on the dialogue from the previous page, where Selena says, "Oh, you know, darling, you know it so well. He's gone. He can't stop me anymore. For what you did for Andrea, I finally get to kill you." Which is interesting that Selena wants revenge for something that happens to Andrea, who is her husband's like ex-lover. Like it's a very interesting person to want revenge for.
But so what happens now?
Yeah.
To her in the course of what Bat and Cat's going to be.
And I think that's the effective part of the book is us going, well, okay, so what does the Joker do other than kill her son, which clearly has already happened, but something that makes Catwoman herself want the revenge on behalf of Andrea. That's an interesting thing to pose. The book maybe does jump around like 3 different time frames a little bit too willy-nilly for its own good.
Yeah. Definitely. That was my big problem with it. It almost has a dreamlike quality at times too. Where you're like, because there's that part where Alfred pops in.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, so what's going on here? Because is he there? Is he not there? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, if you took that part out of it, it might not actually be too bad. It might just feel like 2 timelines, and that would be fine.
Right.
But that moment does make it feel odd. Yeah.
There's a wrinkle there, and So, and that's always my thing with King is it's never poorly written. It's just almost overwritten. Sometimes there's almost too much going on. So, yeah. Yeah.
I was getting, see when Joker like turns on the light when Catwoman's trying to steal the necklace of the mobster, whoever it is, lying in bed. When Joker turns on the light and he's sitting there with a Tommy gun, I was getting like serious Skinner Sweet vibes, and I don't know if that's just because I've been reading The American Vampire, because of Patreon, but it looks it's a very Skinner Sweet pose.
Yeah, you put a cowboy hat on him. It's pretty good. Also, the whole Sewer King thing. I think that's fun to bring in. From,
yeah. Because this is an animated series. Yeah, this is an animated series thing as well. Is before they find the kid's dead body, they think that the Sewer King, who takes in the runaways, that sort of thing,
took in Selena and all of that. And she's in her animated series costume, which is always that's like low key second favorite of mine.
Yeah, it's a fun touch.
I do love I do love her look. That she's definitely more cat burglar. So it's the leather with the goggles and the upturned gear that makes it look like cat ears. That one's close. The second one.
And the book is gorgeous. The mood of the snow. I almost wonder if part of the reason why it got pushed almost a full year is because it was designed to start in winter, and once it got pushed to like maybe say spring, they went, no, can we wait until like December now so that we can start off in winter again?
Maybe, yeah.
Because this issue, okay, maybe he went back and did a couple of the pages to add in all the snow and give it the mood, but it does feel like very wintry. So I wonder if that was part of the reason why. Once they pushed it so far, they said, "Can we just wait until winter again?" Because maybe it's like Long Halloween, where each issue is kind of built around the time of the year that it's roughly coming out.
Yeah,
I could see it.
But yeah. But no, so we'll see where it goes from here. It just. I heard someone say that it confused him, and I wouldn't say it confused me, but there's a lot of balls in the air for the first issue. I would expect all of this coming in like 3 or 4, like him ramping up, not right off the gate.
I would say I was a little confused for the first half of the issue. I think by the end, though, it kind of all slotted. I kind of understood it and it slotted into place, at least as much as it can just now. Obviously, there's mysteries. There's what does the Joker do, so on and so on. You know, why has the Joker been hiding like this? We might get some of that, you know, going forward. But I'm definitely intrigued. Now, admittedly, next to Rorschach and next to Strange Adventures, it is the third one, but as far as King's like 12-issue books go, like it still feels like it might be special once it really gets going. I mean, I like this way more than anything in his last like 30 or 40 issues of Batman. So you know, put that in perspective.
The guy that works at my shop, who's a big Batman fan, I'd asked him, "Are you gonna read this one?" Because he did not like King's Batman whatsoever. And he goes, "No, I only read Tom King when he does like B-level characters or below, because that's what works." So you know, Mr. Miracle or Vision or you know Rorschach.
Does Rorschach count as B-level?
I would put him there because there's not a lot of people like if you say Rorschach, I think people might know him as the Watchmen guy.
He's definitely bigger though than like Mr. Miracle and Adam Strange. Like he definitely is.
But yeah, he says he doesn't trust him on mainstream stuff. And I go, all right, that's more than fair, you know. So, but yeah, but no, the Clayman art, I mean, it's good. I was a little bit worried seeing some of the stuff that we've seen. And based off of Heroes in Crisis, which I think is the last Clayman thing I've read regularly.
Yeah, well, I think after that, he pretty much was working on this because, again, he got, because they were getting all of this like way in advance and getting ahead. And so, presumably he's way ahead on this, if not done. Like maybe he's like working on issue 10 right now for all we know. It's
the Kevin Smith rule that we don't have him do stuff until we have it all. Yeah. You know, we don't start putting it into production until we know the scripts are in. So yeah, maybe it was just waiting on him too, so there's no break in it. So it goes the full year.
Yeah, I think it's like, okay, if we do that, then it you know, we won't start putting them out till summer. Okay, it starts off in the winter though in the story. Can we just hold it off until winter again? and maybe that was an okay choice to make. And they're like, okay, fine. Because it did feel weird how long it got pushed, but because it was meant to debut, I believe, originally in January, and then got pushed. So you know, it's only 1 month earlier in terms of the calendar, if that makes sense. So you know, well, so if there's like a Valentine's themed issue in like February, then we'll know.
We'll know.
We'll know for sure.
Yeah.
If it's all set at winter, then it didn't really matter. But
right.
But we'll see.
It takes place over. It's a Shane Black movie where it takes place over a week before Christmas. Yeah.
It's like 24. It's all in real time. Just 1 minute a page.
There you go.
But no. So you know, what are you giving it? How do you feel about it?
So it's gonna seem high because of the stuff that I said, but I'm gonna give it an 8, just because it is well crafted in parts. Like it looks great and it's paced pretty well. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm also going to give it an 8. I see a lot of potential in this. It doesn't grab me quite the same way that Rorschach or Strange Adventures or even Mr. Miracle did, of course, but I still see a lot of that potential, and I think it being its own separate 12-issue thing, like, it does feel so much better than like half of his Batman run. And I liked a lot of the early Batman run, but that last half did not leave me feeling good about this. But
post Mr. Freeze trial, it got real rough.
Yeah, post Mr. Freeze trial, it never really recovered again all that much. The odd little cool idea or whatever, but yeah, it was mostly into middling territory at that point. Yeah. So there you go. That's Batman Catwoman issue 1. Strange Adventures issue 7. Tom King writing with Mitch Gerads and Doc Shaner on the art. Of course, this is the other big Tom King 12-issue book. This is about halfway through though. This is the one that's first along. Issue 7 here, and this was also a little bit confusing at first because the story in the past with Adam is that he's essentially being tortured, and he's put into like, because these are fictional things, right?
It's a psychedelic adventure that, if you guys remember when we first reviewed Mr. Miracle, I was convinced I didn't like it until we started talking about it. I felt the same way about this when I got done with it, because this is a book I've been real high on. It's really well constructed with the bounce back and forth, and there's something more going on underneath that we're just getting out with Mr. Terrific and Alana. And then this issue went like, what am I reading? It was very, some of the stuff like you read about Jack Kirby is very Kirby-esque in that. So yeah. Which
again, it makes more sense as it goes once you start to get into the rhythm of what it's bouncing between.
Mm-hmm.
The opening scene is this very atmospheric, and it's one of these things where I would have thought this is in the past if it wasn't for the fact that it was Gerads' art telling me, no, this is present
right now.
And this is a picked scout, presumably in the skies, above Earth. And Adam goes to confront, and essentially has a hand shot first style moment here where
he does. And for all of this talk that we've got that no one understands the picks, he certainly has a conversation, unless again he doesn't understand, and he's just he's responding it up out there.
Yeah, he's responding as if he does understand, but we don't. I mean, it's just gibberish to us. We just see like a mix of letters and shapes, and he responds as if he's understanding, but is he just like sort of making that up? Is he just like essentially talking to himself? But he has this hand shot first style moment where he kills the Pict and comes down, and then we go back and we see this part in his mind or the part in the past where he was strapped to a chair, and essentially the guy talks about it being like him jumping via like Zeta beams, but it's actually more like he's been put in different forms of like holodeck torture, where one he's beamed into space, another one he's beamed to like seeing Alana again and thinking he's back home finally, but then he's pulled right back into the torture room.
And that's where I got confused throughout, because I'm like, is he Zeta beaming? Because I know from my research on Adam Strange, when it first happened, he couldn't control. He had to wait for the Zeta beam to pull him back. And if Sardath was, if he couldn't operate the Zeta gun or whatever it was, the Zeta beam technology, he was stuck on Earth. So that's why I wasn't sure what was going on.
I mean, maybe he is beaming places, but I would assume that he would die if he get beamed into space for real. So
no, for sure. Yeah. And that's again why I was getting confused. Like, is this all in his head? Is this because again it was psychedelic? Did they dose him with something?
Yeah, and I'm sure someone will maybe translate the sign language panel where there's like a bunch of hands coming out of the grass.
I did last night.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
there you go.
It's have a nice day, which only made me think of Mick Foley.
Yeah,
especially with the hands. And then the guy's head is a hand.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, Mr. Sacco. So yeah, but have a nice day. Someone else looking through Twitter earlier today, someone had actually done it with they put the letters next to each hand. So yeah.
Yeah, so that's stuff where he just he ends up rebelling at the end of the issue. He like wakes up and snaps this guy's neck. And he sort of like, he just yells out, I'm the hero of two worlds, like, how dare you think I am weak, blah blah blah. And it shows you what he's driven to become this vicious killer, which is kind of ties into the present day story where after he's killed this Pict at the start of the issue, he does it a second time. There's Batman's talking to a Pict scout who's on Earth, and Adam just blows him up from behind, and Batman's like, what are you doing? You can't just kill them like that. And Adam's like, no, you can. I'm not a hero. I'm something else. And it leads to this scene with Alana where Alana, based on the issue with Terrific, where Terrific put the seed of doubt in her, and it made us kind of go, well, wait, yeah, like, we assume she was kind of in things and was maybe even the more evil one. Right. So this idea that he's concealing something from her about her daughter, that there's more to it than she knows, and she kind of brings this up. And he actually confesses to the murder from the start of the book, where he was convinced this guy in the bookshop, he followed him thinking he was a Pict. And he's actually more convinced now that the Pict have started showing up, that he was in fact a Pict. And more and more, it's starting to feel like he is someone who is suffering from serious mental health issues because of what he was driven to in war.
Oh, for sure.
That's
what I know about King, he has PTSD.
Yeah.
And it's PTSD big time. And funnily enough, goes into what I loved about Harleen, the Sejic book, was that she had went into Arkham to study people because people in war zones, it affects their brains. And so why is there such a, all the different villains that come out of Gotham is because Gotham's so terrible. Well, then you look about, if Gotham's a war zone, then what's an actual war zone like?
Yeah. And, Alana's freaking out as she's hearing all this, but when she actually says, is there anything else about her daughter? And he says, no, of course not. I did what I did to win the war, blah, blah, but no, nothing, there's nothing to tell you about that. And she ends up kissing him, and I'm wondering if it's getting to this kind of point where it's maybe telling us that there's either she's also suffering from similar things, or the idea that someone who suffers from PTSD can actually be negatively enabled by someone who who isn't doing the right things for them to get healthy. She's instead reinforcing these ideas because she kind of believes in them too.
Well, she's not that she's outwardly manipulating,
mm-hmm.
but she's definitely using his condition to drive her own narrative, you know? And so if the Rand narrative is the Picts are coming, they're savages, they're going to destroy, well, I'm having the feeling that what Rand has done back to the Picts is what's made Adam like this, right? Because it's one thing to fight in a war against a conquering army. It's another thing to fight in a war as a retaliating force, right? And so this idea of what war does to people, that it makes people think there's a black and a white instead of the shades of gray, as we've seen all over Rand, right? And stuff. And yeah, here, just that image of where he peeks over her shoulder, it's on the 9-panel grid, where he says that I wasn't wrong, it was a disguise, it was just a Pict soldier, and killing him wasn't wrong either. There's just a darkness to him, you know, not like a evil darkness, but just like he's lost, you know, just as lost as he is in all of those different.
I think that you're talking about him peeking over her shoulder. I think that framing is definitely not an accident, and it's definitely very intentional. The way he's kind of like coming from behind her there as he's saying this, the almost idea like he's almost like the evil like devil on the shoulder, like not that he himself is evil in saying this, but the idea that he's also reinforcing something in her. That you know she shouldn't be thinking.
It's a vicious cycle. And because you got to think, what is she fought in the war too? So if he has PTSD, what's it with her? Maybe these people shouldn't be making decisions at that level without seeing help. And that's why I'm hoping with Mr. Terrific, what he represents, because he's a character that's also defined by PTSD with his wife and losing the wife, and she was pregnant, we found out, and how he's responded to it through logic, not through emotion, you know. But yeah, and once you pointed out like it was a torture thing and he wasn't actually beaming and it was more like a danger room scenario, it pulled it back together where I was like, oh, okay. And as I'm looking back through, you know, it makes much more sense.
Well, now, I think that's what it is. I mean, people might correct me, but that's what I was getting from it as it was going on.
I thought they were beaming him to and from places, and it was like the scene where he's with his daughter and her. It seems just off enough, right? And when he goes back, it's just the brain. It's like his nervous system, right? Like the brain and the eyes and all of this stuff. And they scream, and that's why I thought, I was like, well, what is going on here? But then you see him back in that chair looking over the planet, right? So yeah, it makes much more sense, like you said, a holodeck or a danger room where they're showing him his innermost fears. And like one of them, him being in space, he's alone. So
Also,
and that, go ahead.
To go with the whole two worlds thing, if you notice the big 2-page spread where they're lying on the couch, the framed photo above them is one half is Earth, one half is I assume is Ran, and it's like split down the middle.
And they're both on the Earth side, right?
They're both on the Earth side of that page, but as the conversation goes on, by the time like he's done talking over her shoulder, notice that they're completely in front of the green half,
right, of Ran, for Ran.
So very intentional there as well. Some really smart paneling and framing, and I dare say cinematography, because I like using that word, but even though it's a comic book. But yeah, it's wonderful, and you know, maybe if he actually, I mean, maybe him beaming places does kind of work. If the idea that they pull him back just before death, or because it does make the moment where he sees Alana and his daughter again, even crueler. That was real, and they got to see him for a minute before he beamed back out.
Right. Well, because clearly time has passed, because every time you see him, his beard has gotten longer, and the guy's hair's gotten shaggier. And then, you know, each of these end with a little quote, and this one really drives all of that back home too. And it says, I mean, in one of my stories, the guy gets killed, he goes to another world, the bad guy gets it, and he goes back to this beautiful world with his beautiful girl. I think that's lovely. That's a lovely story. It should happen to everybody, right? And this whole issue is about him not being able to adjust, right? And it's almost in that Hurt Locker movie kind of way about the guys. Actually, this is probably a good companion to the Hurt Locker.
It is in a
right?
weird way, yeah.
Right? Now that I think about that, the hero of two worlds, right? Soldiers are doing their thing out across the sea, and then when they come home, it's a completely different thing. So the two worlds isn't just Earth and Ran, it's the home front versus the battlefront.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this team is just like fantastic.
Yeah, and because we're doing science fiction, we're doing like proper fictiony fiction. We can literally take that and turn it into two literal worlds.
Mhm.
You know, because normally it would just be yes, the home front and the actual war front. But here it's like no, that's represented by Ran being the war front and Earth being the home front now. So, and he's kind of brought the war home. The idea that he's murdered someone on Earth soil,
right?
In the way that he has, yeah.
Because of him being so what's the word? Paranoid about the Picts following him, right? Yeah. And that goes into some of the prejudices that people have in this country, and I mean even across the world against the other. You know, this guy was seemingly pro Pict because if you remember from that first issue, the way that he's yelling, he's like, "I know what you did over there," and how you're not a hero and all this other stuff. So, yeah, and just how it becomes an us versus them mentality. And we're seeing it, at least in this country, more and more and more and more as the longer this thing goes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad.
No, I mean, it's hitting a lot of things, as this book, as these Tom King 12-issue books tend to in different ways. And
yeah,
it's impressive that they're all doing very different things with it. And because Rorschach, again, feels very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rorschach feels like the most straightforward. I'm sure there'll be some thing about, political stuff, because that book's very political with the campaign going on and whatnot, and why did these people dress up this way and, whatever. Yeah. But it definitely feels more like a traditional detective story versus these where Mr. Miracle seemed to be about depression and overcoming that. And this one seems to be about trauma.
Yeah, we had a great comment about the last issue of Rorschach on Patreon, which I'll bring up when we get to the next issue because it'll be relevant. But that's issue 7. So the issue ends with Adam in the past, like snapping this torturer's neck, and seemingly ready to, and probably the most motivated he's ever been to just go full ruthless and start killing left and right to win for Ran.
And it's almost as if this is what the Picts wanted, that they poked him enough that I
can see it.
Yeah, if people want to hear me more on that, just hit me up on Twitter. So I don't want to get into too many political type things. Sure. Right? So if you do want more, my DMs are open for that.
Hey, last time you were on the show, we didn't know who the next president was going to be. So I mean, things are looking up a little bit since then. Things
are looking up. Although knowing my country, I don't have faith in at least 43% of people. So yeah. So if you do want to hear some musings about how I think the ending here ties into other things, then my DMs are open.
Yes. And just on that point, Tom King is very opinionated about this stuff. He has a lot of opinions because he worked in the CIA. He saw how a lot of things worked, and he is opinionated and critical in a lot of ways from that experience.
He was over there. Yeah, I mean, Sheriff of Babylon is all about his experiences. And it's not an autobiography, but it is stuff that he's experienced, I'm sure. But yeah, and also following him and Gerads and Shaner, I mean, what a group, because they're all so different, right? And how they go about things. And yeah, just like King's super opinionated, and then Gerads kind of is, but he still kind of tries to pull it back until you really, really push him. He's much more opinionated on whiskeys and Taylor Swift, which cracks me up, than he is on than King is. So
that is two things that I have no knowledge of. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, what are you giving Strange Adventures issue 7?
I'm going to give this a 9.5.
Yeah, I mean, you're shooting high there. It's hard to argue too much. I think I am going to give it a straight 9.
It was a 9 until you helped me cinch the threads of it being maybe a torturing thing. They weren't just beaming him back and forth. You know,
It's the,
once
it's not
that clicked.
it's not kind of much of the art. Just, to me,
Yeah.
it felt neater if it was just like in his head rather than
Yeah.
literally going there. But maybe he is.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, see, in my how I had it set up, I thought Rand was trying to get him back,
Mm.
and every time they would miss because of whatever the picks were doing or whatever. But it makes much more sense the way that it's there.
Oh
It
yeah,
really pulled that together.
it's
than
definitely this guy is
what I
doing it
thought
to
it
him.
was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah.
there you go. So that's the books that we both read, but Matt did also have a look at Dark Multiverse, or Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Wonder Woman, War of the Gods issue 1. After all these other big books this week, I had no interest because the last issue that me and Connor read was thoroughly in the meh.
That Hush one was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I'm someone that defends Hush as a story just because it is a fun, mid 2000s.
I think we all like Hush to a reasonable degree.
Yeah, but I know there are people out there that are like, no, Hush is a bad story. And I was like, okay, well, you can say that it's mainly just a showcase for Batman and for Jim Lee to draw Batman stuff. That's fine. But I expected way more with Hush and some of that stuff with the Dark Multiverse. It did not work out for me.
Yeah, and Matt was saying, hey, I don't need to talk about this. I was like, no, you read it. You should mention what it's like. So tell us what it is quickly.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it is one of these Tales of the Dark Multiverse that gets brought in by Tempest Fugonaut and very Twilight Zone-y, which I am a sucker for. But this one's based off of a George Perez Wonder Woman story of War of the Gods where, funnily enough, Hecate is involved, which we had just finished in Justice League Dark. And it's handled much, much more effectively there than here. And I get that this is a one shot and they have to rush through things, but just that version of Hecate and Circe and all of that stuff, much more fleshed out through Tynion than here. And so in War of the Gods, it was Hecate trying to manipulate all of the different pantheons into going to war with the Amazons because she was upset at them. And Wonder Woman having to get all of the superheroes together and fighting back, and of course they win, and it was Perez's his goodbye to Wonder Woman back in it was the early 90s when it came out by that time. So in this one we come up on the war, and Wonder Woman gets possessed by Hecate, and she ends up becoming this avenging goddess of magic that goes and starts taking out all the different pantheons while at the same time, you had the different band of Amazons, the band of Migdal. They had launched an attack at the same time. And I guess this is all from the Perez stuff, too. And there was this military officer that was fighting them that, come to find out, and this is the Greek god of fear, Phobos. And so their alliance between Phobos and Hecate possessed Wonder Woman. They go out on all-out war. They take out Steve and Etta to completely wipe out Diana. And then it just becomes this really long and drawn out. The heroes are trying to fight Hecate, Diana, but Diana's still in there trying to get out. And the one cool thing with the art is they show her trying to get out is she's like trapped in this hole. And every time she jumps and tries to get out of that hole, it gets higher. So the harder she fights, the harder it is for her to get out. And basically in the grand fashion of Tales of the Dark Multiverse, evil wins, and they think that the gods realize that it's the belief not in them that gives the magic power. It's the belief in the superheroes. So now she decides she has to take them all out. So one by one, we see this evil Wonder Woman take them all out until she's like the only one standing. And at the end, kind of comes back out, but not really. And it's kind of messy. And it was written by Vita Ayala, who does really good work with Wonder Woman from the stuff that I read. I think a lot of these, they do hang on that event or big story, sometimes a little bit too much. Where the ones that I really did like just kind of take the bare bones of it and tell a story out of that. Almost like a what if. So like the Nightfall one, where it's like, what if Bane had won? And that's where the darkness comes from. In this one, I don't know if it was my familiarity with the event, or maybe the event was just kind of like, didn't have that much hooks for the darkness. It just kind of felt, same with Hush. Like I didn't feel like the darkness in Hush was enough to be like a what if Thomas Elliot.
I don't think these have as much of a purpose either, because the last time we got a batch of them, they were kind of building to something here these feel kind of random just because we're doing metal stuff. I guess. Oh, hey, we could do some more multiverse stories. And the last one was just such a like. If these were more regularly sized, I might have been willing to jump on for another one. But because it was like 50 pages, I was like, you know what?
No, and you're not missing too much on this one because all of the other ones I was pretty familiar with. So we had Infinite Crisis, and we've had the Judas Contract, Death of Superman, Nightfall. All stories I'm pretty familiar with. And then Hush, and then this one, which I had to look up this one because I had to see.
Yeah, I never read War of the Gods. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, and then you come to find out too that it's not such a great story for George Perez because they kind of forced him out of Wonder Woman. Like so it was his last story, but not by his own thing. And it took a while for him to fix things with DC for him to finally come back. So it was kind of like, well, did Vita Ayala have the idea for this story? Because I know Wonder Woman seems really close to them, or was this just like, hey, we're doing these things with events. Here's this one. Go ahead and write it. So it's one of those ones where I don't feel, because I feel, again, to bring up the Nightfall one, I feel that was something that Higgins just had, and he's so intimately aware with the Bat family that he made it work. Like, so if they were like, hey, what's your idea for a dark multiverse where Bane won Nightfall? And he was like, oh, okay, cool, here. This one, though, and the fact that I wasn't that familiar with this story, and I'm pretty up to date with continuity stuff. Like, I kind of know the big beats, like 0 Hour and stuff like that. It almost makes me wonder, too, is how many people are, familiar with War of the Gods.
Yeah, it feels like maybe they've done all the bigger stories, so now they're starting to... Like, there's a lot of big ones you could go to, but there's only like so many times you can do a Bat one. Like, cause like, okay, yeah, we all understand.
Well, so like I'm waiting for the one of the dark of almost that 0 Hour one, but where Hal, what's it called, the Parallax story, where he goes and wipes out the Judgment Night or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Give me the dark version of that one. That one I feel would necessitate that, because that is a dark moment going throughout.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one was just kind of like, I don't know what the next one is, but I'm not keen to read it. I was kind of on iffy with After Hush.
Yeah, I don't think there is a next one. I think there was only these two announced.
Was there only these two? So I felt like there was more.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was another one after that.
Yeah.
But I don't remember these two being announced. But yeah, okay. Do I rate it?
If I have to rate it, yeah. I mean, the art's fine. I don't connect to the story that much, so I would probably give it a 5/5.
Sure.
About there.
Okay. In that case, I'll take out the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff for the week. There are panel/moment of the week, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books, which is basically what we both read. Although you read that one extra one, I don't imagine that's going to end up on your top 5 though. So we'll start off with panel/moment. What are you going with?
So I'm gonna go with the Frost King being revealed and almost yelling vengeance as he comes up, which then took me to get my phone out and I put on some Amon Amarth, which is a Viking death metal band. And the song that played was Vengeance is Mine, so it worked out perfectly. And I was able to finish reading the book, listening to Viking metal, and it was perfect.
It has to be Batgirl's calling Batgirl Prime.
Of course.
It has to be. It was like vindication. It was like, yes, you've been asking for this, even though let's be honest, it's probably the bottom ranking book for me this week. But my favorite moment is still Batgirl's calling Batgirl Prime. That wins. So
it's good.
Yeah. Then we get to cover. I'll jump in here first for this one, I suppose.
Okay.
I've actually got 2 Mattina variants because he's got one for both Batman and Batman Catwoman, and they're both pretty good. The one for Batman especially I quite like. And obviously Strange Adventures usually has good covers. I think the one I'm going to pick though is actually the DCeased variant that's basically the Shazam movie but with Mary Marvel instead.
Yeah.
I think because Mary Marvel's been getting such a great spotlight from Unkillables into this DCeased book, her getting this cover is really nice. It's a really pretty cover as well as being a fun concept. So
yeah, I do feel like with her, it's time for her to get the Supergirl treatment, where she can maybe take a little bit of the spotlight from Billy. Because, I like Billy. He's fine. But at this point, a Tom Taylor Marvel's book where she's kind of the star, I would be more than okay with.
Yeah. Or even just give Tom Taylor the Shazam book where he can do the whole family if he wants. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I mean, where she's kind of taking precedent, though, a little bit.
Sure.
Damn, League of Comic Geeks has changed since I've been on here.
Oh yeah,
So,
you've not been on.
No,
it still works the same way. You may have to
colors.
click the little filter button to get just DC.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Well, I used to have it set up, and then I had to restart the computer and all this other stuff. So
Yeah.
everything kind of just disappeared. Because I gotta see the variants here.
Oh, of course, yes. Batman Catwoman has like 20 of them, so.
Yeah, so it's probably not going to be from that. I just want to see the Endless Winter. Because I mean, that's a good enough cover too, but I don't want to do good enough. Too bad we didn't talk about Metalman, because that's a pretty fun cover. It has like the starkness. It looks like that the guy that worked in the 60s, Saul Bass. He did all for like Hitchcock, the title sequences and stuff. There's a very Saul Bass. Oh, come on, computer. This thing is ancient. Oh, that variant's not that great. Actually, I would also almost say that variant's almost bad. Yeah, so I'll just go with the Endless Winter main cover. I think who is that on the cover?
Is that Manipul, I think?
I think so. Or no, it's Janin.
Was it Janin?
So,
there you go.
Yeah, that makes sense then.
It looked Manipul-esque in colors, which is why I thought
and
that.
I think that's why, because it's got the soft tones that Manipul usually does. Yeah.
That's cool. All right then. Best art of the week, Matt. What you got?
It's Strange Adventures.
It's hard. I mean, that combination's hard to argue with.
Yeah.
For sure. Although Clayman, I mean, it's worth mentioning. I'll say that.
Yes. Definitely.
So that's fair. But I will actually agree with Strange Adventures as best art. All right, Matt. What's your top 5 books of the week?
All right. So this is where it's tough work, because they're both equal. You know. Do I want to put Strange Adventures number 1 or DCeased? So I think I'm going to go DCeased number 1, Strange Adventures 2, Endless Winter 3, Batman Catwoman 4, and then Batman 5.
Yeah, I would put Strange Adventures number 1. And then I think Endless Winter number 2, Batman Catwoman number 3, DCeased number 4, Batman number 5. I will say, I mean, obviously Batman's the murkier one because it has those art problems and things we don't like, but I will say for a week with, you know, essentially 5 books, it's a really solid week. Like that's a high caliber and, you know, quality standard across the slate there. So that's really cool. But I will tell you what's coming next week. So let's see what we'll be talking about then. So Detective Comics 1032 is coming out, although we won't be talking about that because none of us read it, but it's there. And if Connor's back, hopefully, if he gets his computer working. But we will be talking about Flash 767 because that is Endless Winter Chapter 2. Wonder Woman 768 is out. Oh, I was definitely lying because Tales from the Dark Multiverse Flashpoint issue 1 is out next week.
Remember I said I don't want to read these? That's how they get me, because Flashpoint is one that would be a good idea. You know?
Yeah, who's on that bad boy?
That's what I'm looking at.
There we go. Brian Hitch and David Marquez. Marquez art is
Marquez art's almost worth it.
Marquez art should be good on that. Green Lantern season 2 issue 10 is out. Dark Knight's Death Metal: The Last Stories of the DC Universe issue 1. But notably, this is one of the big ones that feels like it's going to be very relevant for the universe going forward.
That's why it's got a $9 price tag.
Yeah, it's a biggie. It's got Dick and Donna on the front. It's got
Oh well, it's got the original All New Teen Titans.
You're right. Yeah. I didn't click how to make
Beast
it bigger.
Boy, Raven, Starfire, Kid Flash, Cyborg, Robin, and Wonder Girl.
Yeah, so, this one feels important as opposed to the last few tie-ins. So hopefully that tracks.
Well, and here's your murderer's row of writers on this one. You got Scott Snyder, you got Jeff Lemire, you got Williamson, you got Gail Simone, Mark Waid, James Tynion, Chris Sabella, Cecile Castellucci, and Mariko Tamaki.
Yeah, that is like a all-star list.
Artist. I think it's the only artist mentioned is Francis Manapul.
Yeah, the rest of it all just cover artists, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then you have Tula Lote as the main artist, so that's Gary Frank. So, yeah. as much as I was complaining about the tie-ins, this would be definitely one I would not miss.
No, that's one as soon as it's listed that looked like it was important.
Yeah.
So it's this one, and then there's one that's like, you know, Lost Generations next month that's equally as big, that seems just as important.
And this has the Frank variant.
Yes.
Which means I won't be buying two. So it's like, do I want the Lotte? Do I want the Frank one that seems like it was supposed to go to Generations?
Well, the Frank one lines up with the next couple of things. So there's like three of them that all line up. I feel like that's where you go, but I mean, that's up to you.
Definitely.
We have Batman Black and White issue 1 out next week. We got Superman Endless Winter Special issue 1, which is chapter 3 of the story. American Vampire 1976 issue 3 is out, as is Sweet Tooth The Return issue 2. And of course, DC's annual Christmas anthology book, DC's Very Merry Multiverse issue 1 is out, which is a $10, 80-page book or whatever. I can guarantee we're not going to be reading that, especially with the other important 80-page book that is actually, interesting to us. But that's an interesting. It's not actually that many, but obviously we have the big couple of ones there, a couple of Endless Winter chapters, and I think that Death Metal tie-in are going to be the highlights of next week. So look forward to that. And we'll see how things fare. But that is pretty much us. I will take the time to thank our Patreon producers for the month here. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are Patreon producers for the month, meaning they are $20 or more on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But you can, of course, support us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. At the $5 tier specifically, you get early access to the podcast by a day, as well as other shows from MailFuzz TV, but obviously this one is the most relevant thing to your interest if you're here. So go and have a look over there, see if you want to support the show and keep everything coming. You can also support us in other simple ways, such as hitting the like button on YouTube, subscribing, sharing us on Twitter, reviewing the podcast on iTunes, giving us 5 stars, that kind of thing. All of that stuff really helps and spreads the podcast around, and more people will find us and lets us grow. So please do consider doing any and all of those things. Thank you kindly. But otherwise, get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast for questions and shenanigans and whatever else. But that is us. So I'm just trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. I don't think so. I think that is the show.
Sounds about right.
So yeah, thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. So everyone go and be nice and tell Matt your happy's back on Twitter. But thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
Just remember, Bret Hart's better than Shawn Michaels. That's just a fact.